Hello and a very warm welcome to today's iOB business webinar. It's a real pleasure to be on here, real pleasure to have you on here. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes whilst we're waiting for a few other people to join us and whilst we get set up for today's presentation. So today what we're going to be discussing is how to assess the earning potential of a digital agency in 2021. So it's a very, very interesting and very exciting topic, and it should give you a real insight onto what you can expect as a current or prospective business owner and digital agency owner in 2021, and how much money you can earn with a digital agency in 2021. Okay, so you can probably see in my face, I'm excited to present this today. It's a real pleasure to have you on here. Thank you so much to those who are joining us from around the world. As always amazing to see so many different people from different locations joining us on these webinars. So if you just bear with me one moment, I'm going to get us set up for today's presentation. Okay, so we're all ready to go. We're all set. Now, today we're going to be discussing how to assess the earning of a digital agency in 2021, how to assess the earning potential of a digital agency in 2021. Okay, so your presenter today is myself. My name is Ben Porter-Smith, and I'm a business coach. I specialize in working with small businesses and helping them achieve stability and growth. Okay, this is what I do day in, day out. This is my passion. And like I say, it's a real privilege for me to be on here presenting with you today in partnership with iOB Business. Okay, so today's discussion, we're going to talk about first evaluating yourself. Okay, now any topic like this almost always begins with evaluating yourself and your current stance. The next thing we're going to talk about is value earned per hour. Now, if this doesn't make 100% sense right now, please don't worry about that. I understand it's a bit of a vague term, but we are going to really deep dive into that on that topic today. So if you don't understand that right now, do not worry about it, because we will cover it. And number three, we're going to be talking about the necessities of your general market. Okay, so beginning today's presentation with evaluating yourself. Okay, now the first thing we're going to look at is that some digital services are worth more than others. Okay, now I've asked you a question here: where are you skilled? Okay, so the most important thing, and one of the most very important places to start with this, is beginning to analyze your own skill set. Okay, where are you skilled? Now, when I say some digital services are worth more than others, what I mean is that something like social media management may be worth less than, say, a copywriting service. Okay, so generally speaking, social media management services, it would be fair to charge in the region of, say, 20 to 30 pounds an hour. Okay, now more specialist services or specialist pieces of software are worth maybe 60 to 70 pounds an hour. Okay, so when we're looking at earning the full potential of a digital agency, we need to also assess our own skill set and begin to figure out where our skill set actually lays within ourselves, so that we can begin to figure out how much we can actually charge for each service. Okay, now the amount of time you can give to the business will greatly dictate how much you can earn. Okay, so remember today's topic, we're talking about evaluating the earning potential of a digital agency in 2021. Of course, this is going to begin with you. Okay, because some digital services are worth more than others, and the amount of time that one person can give may be more or less than another person could give. Okay, so whilst we do heavily focus here at iOB Business on working smarter, not harder, we do want to get more done in less time. Okay, now the reason that time is relevant when it comes to running your business, if you can assert 1 hour a day to your business, you're probably going to earn less with your digital agency than someone who can commit, say, 7 to 8 hours. Okay, now this is just a universal fact. The more time you have to spend on your business, the more powerful you can make it. All right, so let's just take a very brief example. Okay, now to say that you were developing, say, a new service, right? And to develop this new service may take about 20 hours. Now, running this service may not take 20 hours per week, but certainly the development of this service will. So if you could commit only 1 hour a day, this is going to take you 20 days to develop your new service. It's going to help you earn more money. If you work 8 hours a day, it's going to take you just under 3 days. Okay, so your time span is much shorter, meaning that you'll be able to earn more money in a faster capacity, and you'll also be able to handle more clients. Okay, because whilst the work smarter, not harder method applies in many different ways, some client services will always need the same amount of time that they require. There's not always necessarily a way to do some things faster. Okay, so the amount of time that you can give to the business will greatly dictate how much you can earn. I hope that example there was helpful and helped emphasize the point of how much time you can spend on your business does actually sometimes very heavily correlate with how much money the business can earn. Okay, so the next thing we must look at is the platform on which you have to sell and conduct sales is absolutely crucial to how much you can earn as a digital agency owner in 2021 and any year for that matter, okay? Now, if we look at this in its most simple form, if you have poor tech that doesn't work particularly well, this is going to harm your sales opportunity, meaning you're going to earn less money. If your technology is flawless, your clients can book with you easily. They can review your business easily. They can see what you offer as a digital agency in a nice and easy manner. You are infinitely more likely to sign them as a client. But not only this, if you do have poor tech, you might be missing actual sales opportunities as well. If a client or prospective client goes to book a meeting with you, say a sales meeting, for example, the technology lets you and them down, meaning they can't actually attend that meeting because they couldn't book because the technology is glitched or it's let them down or your website has a bug in it, any number of things that can happen. This will massively harm your sales opportunities, okay? So it's always important to make sure that if you are looking to become a digital agency owner, or if you are a current digital agency owner, partner with someone whose tech is absolutely second to none, okay? This is very, very, very important. Make sure that you're using the best tech out there, the best tech on offer, okay? So let's have a look now at value earned per hour, okay? Now, earn more money in less time by focusing on higher value per hour services. Okay, so when we're looking at value earned per hour, this is what we're talking about. Okay, how much money, how much financial value can you earn per hour? Now, per hour is the unit that we've chosen to focus on for this webinar. You could do earned per day, earned per month, earned per year. But in particular, the hour is the best unit to work with in this equation because it allows us to calculate for the day, week, month, and year. Okay, so earn more money in less time by focusing on higher value per hour services. Now, of course, again, if we reference back to my earlier example in the first slide, we were talking about certain services being worth more than others. Okay, so if you're focusing on a low value task, say something like some form of content creation, something for social media, where we say low value, it doesn't necessarily mean low value, but this could be, say, 30 to 35 pounds an hour. All right. Now, instead, you could work on something like, say, website development or copywriting. Okay. Now, these, of course, are worth infinitely more per hour. Okay. Now, this is just not to say that one is more skilled than the other or one requires more time than the other. There's no discernible difference between what can make more or less money. Okay. Now, there's lots and lots of things that you can do. You can charge more for bits of software. You can charge good fees over there. But the most important thing to understand when focusing on higher value per hour services is that it's an industry standard. Okay. Now, that's not to say, like I said just there, it doesn't mean that one is more skilled than the other. It does not mean that one takes more time than the other. It literally means value per hour means how much money can you earn within that hour. So by focusing on higher value per hour services, your digital agency is going to make more money. It's just absolutely clean and simple. The services that you offer, if they bring in more money within the same time frame than other services do, it's always worth focusing on them. Now, of course, the absolute optimal route to focus on here is implementing a piece of software for your client that you can charge for, that you don't actually even need any interaction for. If you can do this, then you allow yourself to earn infinitely more money because you're not dedicating your own time to earn money. You're not exchanging time for money at this point, okay? Now, your time is valuable. We could deep dive into that, but for the purposes of this webinar, let's keep to that exact point, okay? Earn more money in less time by focusing on higher value per hour services. Now, the next thing to look at is being selective with your client base. This one is very, very simple and very, very clear. Okay, when you're being selective with your client base, you're looking at taking on higher value clients as opposed to lower value clients. Now, one of the biggest things I see as a digital agency owner myself and coaching so many digital agency owners currently in the past is that being selective with your client base can be one of the most technically helpful things to keep your business flowing in a very, very, very positive cash flow like manner. Okay. Now, when we're looking at being selective with your client base, okay, let's just take a very brief example again. If we're looking at lower value per hour clients and we're taking on more of these, we can only ever work in so much time with so many clients. There's something called a client capacity, which means the digital agency will only ever be able to hold a certain amount of clients at any one time. Now, I won't give you a specific number because this number is different for every digital agency. However, every single digital agency that exists today will have a client capacity. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't grow or shrink this client capacity. That is completely up to them. The point being that their client base will always have a capacity. Okay, so when you're being selective with your client base, you're actively seeking to take on higher paying clients than lower paying clients. Okay, now what a lot of new digital agency owners will do, and even some current digital agency owners will do, is deliberately aim for the lower value clients in order to start building a customer base, right? Now, whilst this logic is partially correct, you don't want to fully go down this route, because then once your client capacity has filled up, you have a digital agency that isn't earning as much as it could do. Okay, so a digital agency in itself can be a very, very, very effective earnings tool, and it can be a massively successful business. But it's important that you know how to structure your client base, how to structure your service offerings, to make sure that you are making the most out of the time that you have to spend on a digital agency as a digital agency owner. Okay, so being selective with your client base is one of the next tips that I can share with you on making sure that your business, your digital agency earns as much money as it can, and you're taking full advantage of the opportunities in front of you. Okay. Now, be very, very cautious of offering discounted work. Okay. Now, I have a very, very simple example that I love using for this one. Okay. But to begin with the core explanation, offering discounted work can harm your chances. Okay. It can harm your chances of signing new clients, because offering discounted work means that you're not only discrediting your own service and your own value, you're discrediting what they perceive your value to be. Okay. So by offering discounted work, right? So let me give you a very brief example here. Okay. Now, if I showed you two identical pairs of black shoes. Okay. Now, one pair was listed on eBay for £20, and the other pair was listed on, say, Gucci, a designer brand, for £200. Okay. Now, perceptively, how you're going to look at this, a little bit of sales and consumer psychology here. If you're looking at the eBay pair of shoes, they're on there for £20. You're going to look at them and think, oh, you know, they're all right. They're pretty cheap. They probably won't last very long. I might wear them just as day-to-day trainers, but I probably wouldn't invest any more than 20 quid in them. Okay. It's just how you're looking at them, because they're a nice, cheap pair of trainers. Now, if I were to show you an identical pair of trainers, okay, of identical quality and everything else on this designer website for £200, your perception is going to be, I'm only going to wear those shoes on occasion. They're going to look amazing on my feet. I'm going to feel great when I'm wearing them. I'm going to know that they're expensive. Okay. Now, of course, this is purely an example. I'm not saying that a pair of shoes on eBay are of the same quality as a designer pair of shoes. What I am saying is that a large part, this applies to consumer psychology by using the basic example that sometimes a lower priced service or product can have an actually reverse effect to what the business owner hopes to achieve. Okay. By offering something at a discounted level or significantly discounted level, you're then showing actually the quality of my work isn't that great. If you're willing to take off massive chunks and massive discounts just to get business, sometimes it does make the consumer question the quality of the product. Now, they want to feel like they're paying for premium. They want to feel like they're paying for something exciting, for something that will be massively an assistance to their business. Okay. Now, this is where we're looking at the premium side of things. Okay. So reverting back to that point one final time. It is not uncommon, and it is perfectly acceptable to offer small discounts to get a prospective client in the door if you feel that it would help foster a long-term client working relationship. Okay. The point where it will harm you is if you offer discounts on a regular and ongoing basis, where the client now believes that they can take huge chunks off of your fees month in, month out. And the other way it's going to harm you is by obviously affecting your bottom line and affecting your cash flow. So to reiterate, and not to say that a designer pair of shoes and a cheap pair of shoes are exactly the same thing, but for the purposes of logic, we're looking at two identical products, one priced significantly higher than the other. Which one do you think the consumer is going to believe is better, even though they're exactly the same product? Okay, so ask yourself that question. Moving on. Okay, now one final point I can share with you, whilst we're talking about value earned per hour, whilst we're on this very, very important topic. Okay, and one thing I have seen before as a business coach, and I've seen before as a digital agency owner myself, and I've seen before having coached so many digital agency owners in the past and currently, is fronting the cost of client work in exchange for possible future work. Okay, now this is something that I must absolutely advise against. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, now what I mean by this is some digital agencies, in order to attempt to sign a prospective client, would go to, say, your local cafe owner. Okay, so a digital agency, say, comes to me, and I'm the owner of a local cafe. Now, this digital agency may say to me, hi, Ben, we're going to run some digital advertising services for you, and we're going to pay your advertising cost for month one. Okay. So not only is that going to cost the digital agency probably around about £300-400, and they're giving all their work in exchange for free. Okay, so this is a massive outlay. They're not only deducting their fees, they're actually also proactively paying the advertising fees of the business owner, which is just a huge no-no. Okay, now the simple logic, there's so many reasons not to do this, but one of the biggest points to not do this is that many paid advertising campaigns can take at least 3 months to show any kind of results. Okay, so you've got two possible outcomes. If you were to go to a prospective business owner and offer to pay for their advertising in order to potentially exchange them as a client, one of the biggest possible outcomes that you're going to get from this is either the first possible outcome, where you're going to outlay the advertising cost and your personal service cost for free at your own expense. And then after a month, if you're only doing this for a month, you're going to spend probably in the region of, say, £500-600 whilst giving your services for free. And there hasn't been enough time to collect enough data or have the advertising campaign to begin earning results. So the business owner is going to turn around and say, thanks very much for your effort. Thanks very much for your time. We haven't seen any results, so we're not going to sign with you. Okay. So all of this has been a monumental waste of time for you and your budget. Okay. Now, the second alternative that you might look at doing is, say you did run this test for 3 months and you're covering the advertising cost and your own services for 3 months with a prospective business owner. Now you've outlaid 3 times the amount that you did originally, and maybe they do want to sign with you as a client. Okay. Now this might look like good news, but if you think about the amount you spent, say maybe 500, 1,000, 1,500 pounds, whatever that cost is that it's taken you to get that client, I can almost assure you that this is infinitely more than what you would have paid if you were to work on your own effective lead generation methods. Okay, so that is just a very brief and very strict lesson if you're becoming a digital agency owner, or if you're an existing digital agency owner, because I know we have a diverse group on this webinar today. And if this fits your position, please, please, please do not do this. Okay, this is an absolutely crucial piece of advice. Okay, so moving on to the final piece of the presentation today. Okay, necessities of your general market. Now, as much as I would love to speak to one of your digital agencies individually, unfortunately I can't. So I'm going to use a generalized term here. Okay, and we're going to look at the market in general. Now, when we're assessing the earning potential of a digital agency in 2021, we must look at the necessities of the general market. Okay, so the first thing that you can do is you can browse freelancing sites to get an idea of what people are interested in hiring for. Okay, what this is going to help you do is isolate hotspots in the market, popular services, things that people need right now. Okay, now I'm not saying go on and become a freelancer. That's actually the opposite of what I'm saying. What I am saying is go on here and assess market demand. Okay, you'll get an idea of how much people are willing to pay within reason, and you'll get an idea of the services that people need the most at the moment. Okay, so what people are interested in hiring for, individuals and businesses. Okay, now a really good tip here is to gain entry-level work with a client to get your foot in the door. Okay, now with most client relationships, they blossom and they grow arms and legs into different services and requirements. Okay, so if you gain entry-level work with a client to get your foot in the door. Okay, so we're going to cover pricing in just a second here, but let's look at this logic. If you're getting entry-level work, say on something like social media management, okay, you're going in at £30 an hour because they're looking for social media management. Now, once you're in this door, your current client is going to look at your digital agency as someone who most likely provides all digital services, but they're only currently hiring you for social media. Okay, now should there come a demand for website development, food ordering, food delivery system, social media scheduling systems, appointment booking systems, all of the amazing things that you can then begin to offer them as a result of this. Okay, so gaining entry level work with a client will get your foot in the door. And once your foot is in the door, your negotiating power goes up and up and up, because your client, and the most important part here from the psychological aspect, is that when you're looking at it this way, the client will come to you before they look to other digital agencies to gain this work for them. Okay, so getting your foot in the door with a client could be massively powerful. Okay, now the necessities of your general market. Now, what I mean by this is setting your pricing strategy in line with entry-level work and add additional value for increased fees. Okay, so what I mean by this is don't go in offering website development, social media management, consultancy, and hoping to get this straight away. A more effective approach can sometimes be to look at the lower value services. Okay, Now, I'm not saying charge what a freelancer would charge, because you have the full backing and setup of a digital agency. You are infinitely worth much, much, much more than a freelancer would be because of the resources and backing that you have. But entry level work is just what would be classed as an industry standard low value service. So get your foot in the door with something like this. Set your pricing strategy in line with this. Get your foot in the door, and then you can add additional value for increased fees. Okay, so you can look to add consultancy. You can look to add social media scheduling and social media management. You can look at content creation. You can look at blog creation. All these different things that you can do to compound the value of your service and therefore earn more money. Once your foot is in the door, this will open up these options for you. Okay, so you can add bolt-on services, as we just discussed, consultancy. Okay, social media management, content creation, blogs, website development, bolt-on services. One of the most classic examples of this is I can run your paid advertising campaign for you, and I'll also be your marketing strategist. I'll also help you develop a wider marketing campaign for your company, as well as taking care of one specific element, which would be paid advertising. Okay, another example, I'll offer you a website development package. I'll build your website for you, and then as a bolt-on, I'll take care of your SEO as well, your search engine optimization. Okay, now a bolt-on would usually have to be relevant to the original product. So it would have to actually fit in. So for example, you couldn't say, can I run your website? And then can I go and, start maybe consulting on sales? Okay, doesn't tie in well together. But if you're offering a website and you're offering SEO, or you're offering social media management and you offer social media scheduling, these are fantastic examples of a bolt-on service that your client will be very, very likely to say yes to, because it just makes sense. Okay. Now, one final point before we wrap up on today's presentation. You may have to educate your market on things they need, as opposed to waiting for them to find the necessity. Okay. So one very, very important element of analyzing the earning potential of a digital agency, okay, is not only what can we actually grab right now, what can we create for ourselves? Okay. Now, education within the market, I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do, okay, but it is absolutely possible. So if you can educate your market on things that they need, as opposed to waiting for them to find the necessity. Okay. Now, what I mean by this, food ordering platform is the best example of this. Okay. Especially right now during lockdown. Okay. You'll go to a local cafe and they think they're doing just fine with their food deliveries the way they are. Okay. They don't know right now that they could be doing it better. That's not their fault. That's just the way they've been doing business for 30 years. It is now your responsibility to educate this local cafe on how they could be making more money by using your platforms and your software. They could have a smoother food ordering experience for their customers. They could have a smoother delivery schedule as a result of their smoother food ordering system. They can make more money. They can increase their customer base. They can begin marketing on an ongoing basis. All of these things that they could do, but they're not currently doing. And that is your responsibility to educate them should you wish to get that business. So never be afraid to introduce something that people are not necessarily aware of, because you might even be carving out an opportunity in the market for yourself. Okay, so that brings us to an end on today's webinar. Now, as always, as a big thank you for spending time with us on today's webinar, I would like to offer something for you. Everything we've spoken about today, everything we've spoken about within the earnings potential and what you could become as a digital agency owner, I would like you to discover the opportunity for yourself. Now, what you can do to do this is book a complimentary demo with iOB Business to find out about our all-in-one solution. Okay, something that can conduct everything that we've spoken about in this webinar and more. Okay, this is a massive opportunity and something that you should absolutely look at. The best part is that it's completely complimentary, completely on us. Okay, if you would like to do this, go ahead and visit iob-business.com/talk-to-us. Okay, so as always, whilst I run the Q&A session, I'm going to leave this link up on the screen for you here today. If you do have any questions, go ahead and pop them in and I will look to answer them whilst we're working through the questions that we currently have today. Okay, so I'm just going to have a little look here and see what questions we have. Okay, fantastic. So we've got one at the moment, which is excellent. And please keep them flowing, keep them coming in. Okay, if there's something that you want to ask, something that you were unsure of throughout the presentation, I'm always more than happy to answer them. Okay, so the first question I have here today is, which freelancing sites would you recommend for market research? Okay, cool. That's a great question. So Remember what we're looking at for freelancing websites here is we're assessing the demand of the market. We're looking at the most in demand or the hottest digital services right now, okay? The things that people are buying the most, okay? So what to do is when you go onto these websites, just before I share them with you, if you can see which ones are being purchased, how often they're being purchased, how many reviews the services have, this is all an indication of how regularly these services are being bought. So you can look at things like peopleperhour.com. You can look at Upwork.com, and you can also look at Fiverr.com. Okay, now that's Fiverr, Fiverr.com. Okay, so I'll give you a moment to write those down. That's peopleperhour.com, Upwork.com, and Fiverr with 2 R's.com. Okay, so the next question, I have just had one come in, which is fantastic. Okay, let me just have a quick look at this one, and I will dive onto it in just a second here. So we're looking at an interesting question. Okay, why would a client pay me more to do the same job as a freelancer? Okay, well, yeah, very interesting perspective. Okay, so of course, if we're looking at the freelancing websites, it's a natural question to ask yourself as a digital agency owner, if a freelancer can do the same job, then why would someone pay me more? Okay, now there's actually a lot of reasons that I can answer this question with. Okay, the first one to recognize is that you are not doing the same job as a freelancer. Your backing and resources as a digital agency owner is infinitely more powerful. You have better customer support. You have more avenues to assist them with. You most of the time will have a broader skill set. Okay, you have more capabilities. You have more software, more tech. You know, all these different things that a digital agency owner can offer as opposed to a freelancer. Okay, there's nothing wrong with being a freelancer, but what it is being a digital agency owner will give you much more backing to sign significant and much more significant clients. Okay, now if we look at it as well from a stature point of view, many businesses prefer simply to work with digital agencies because they generally have much more credibility and backing than a individual freelancer would. Okay, so freelancers are unlikely to get large projects just because they don't have the backing of a digital agency as such. Now, other things to think about here as well, when we're looking at a digital agency versus a freelancer and why would they work with you, we have to take into account that skill levels vary, that there's different things that you can offer. Okay, so everything that we just discussed, having more credibility and more backing. Okay, we're also looking at the awareness. Okay, now it's not always you versus the freelancer. Now we're going on this assumption, if you're asking the question of, well, why would they pick me as opposed to a freelancer? You're working on the assumption that they even know a freelancer exists. Okay, now often with the style of lead generation that you do, if you're bringing somebody in to your business, your prospective business, the right way, they're very unlikely to even be reviewing competition at that point in time. If you conducted your lead generation effectively, the prospective client should be on your landing page and your landing page only. So unless they have prior experience and they know where freelancers are, they're very unlikely to even bother comparing. Now it's on you to close them as a digital agency client. Okay, so it's a very interesting approach to look at this, is that, well, why wouldn't they use a freelancer? For every other reason, including the fact that they might not even bother thinking about freelancers at this point in time because they just don't know they're there. Okay, so that's a fantastic question. Really, really powerful. So I'm just going to do one final check. I see that we don't have any more questions in for today, but I believe that is us. Massive thank you to everybody who has joined us and taken the time to join us today. As always, it's been a real pleasure presenting today's session to you, and I very much look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Bye for now.